Welcome back. This is a long sabbatical period that we've had. In the comeback that no one asked for, literally none of you were messaging me. Football Chat is back, 7 years virtually to the day. Gavin, you're a regular. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Well, like locked down as everyone else, but yeah, feeling fit and healthy and raring to get back into the podcast and radio scene.
Is literally, I mean, we've been discussing, I think we want the TalkSport gig, don't we? That's what we want. We want back on, first on. We saw an opportunity. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, to be honest, I listen to a lot of podcasts and the content on there is getting fairly bleak each week as football doesn't return. So it sort of reminded me of our own radio show, so made me think we should get back to it.
It did. Amazing. And then in another world, so we don't have Kit with us today, sadly, which is very upsetting, but
To clarify, Kit's still alive.
That's a triumph every year that Kit is still alive. And remarkably, he has picked up more work over this period. So, welcome to the show for the first time ever. 7 years on, it felt fitting. Leo, you have joined us. How are you?
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, what a time to make your debut. This is like Ryan Bertrand in the Champions League final.
If there was a metaphor I was looking for, it was that one.
Yeah, that's the natural one that everyone goes to, isn't it? The famous debuts. I'm doing well. Just hopeful I might be able to, fill in the kit-shaped hole in all of our hearts. So
amazing. And I'm very aware that in order to fill that hole, your background is superb.
To clarify, that is Jack behind me, and Arsene. Obviously, I'm blocking him for some of the time. That's
And obviously, you've sat yourself in the middle as the future of English football.
Yeah. I'm part of the English core, so that's
Exactly. Brilliant. I personally do still see Jack Wilshere as the future of English football. Lockdown. Is there anything specific you guys are doing to get through that, to get your football fix? Leo, I'll come to you first. Obviously, a massive fan, missing possibly the best year in Chelsea's history.
Anyways, yeah.
Is there anything you're doing to keep yourself going, to encourage yourself and to keep you going on a football fix, I guess?
Oh, okay. So the Hoover might be running outside, so I don't know if you can hear that. But no, I've been I've been following the Belarusian league very closely, which I'm sure you know is the only one still running. So I've been doing we've got a weekly predictions game, which I'm currently in second of 3. Huge fan of Slutsk, they're my team. Have you guys seen it, or is that me?
That is stable enough at the minute. We've had some possible technical difficulties that we're monitoring. So which team? I've completely forgotten. Which team does Alexander Falev play for?
He's played for Bate Borisov about 7 times. He's done a lot of stints there. They're the big dogs. They're the Juve of Belarusian football. But they haven't started too hot this season. It's
amazing stuff. And do you find that's filling it, or are you genuinely finding it quite difficult at the minute without football?
It's not filling it at all, to be honest.
Do you watch any games? This sounds crazy.
I think it's available on some. Well, I mean, everything's available somewhere on the internet. But yeah, just guessing scores isn't really like the same as actually watching a game, going to a game. It's not. I don't think it's more just something to do than anything else.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm particularly missing playing. I know that. Obviously, I'm playing 11-a-side at the minute through my church team. I know that. So, Leo, I think you're playing 5s, aren't you, at the minute?
Yeah, I play normally a lot of 5-a-sides, so that's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Which for me, I've just been interested. That for me has been the bigger blow than the 11-a-side. As in watching football, playing for me has seemed particularly difficult, having lost that. I am playing a lot of spike ball now and doing a lot of goalkeeper drills on the trampoline. That's
very nice.
So when we come out of this, I'll be deputising in for Fabianski in West Ham goal. Gav, have you been doing anything particular in trying to get your fix up?
Yeah, it's sort of a mix of things. I guess I still play fives, but I've lost all forms of fitness since leaving uni, and that was from a very low bar. So I now just stand near the goal and tap it in at fives. So I've taken up running during the lockdown, so I'm actually planning on coming back fitter than ever and surprise people, lose a bit of weight. So I'm looking forward to my glorious return, probably this time next year, by the time we'll be allowed to play fives again. And I don't know if you guys have watched on Netflix The English Game.
I've not. No, I've heard about it, but I've not.
It's supposed to be, so it's like a historical recount of like how the FA sort of started up properly and how Blackburn were the first the first working class team to win the FA Cup. And it's worth a watch on the basis that the football scenes are. Do you remember in like Goal? The Santiago Nunez, whatever, anytime he would look to kick the ball, he would just take a big weird swing at it and it would go top corner. So it's essentially that, but everyone's dressed in Downton Abbey type attire, and it's definitely worth a watch.
You had me until the Downton Abbey. I do miss Goal, Dream Team, if anyone remembers Dream Team, all that sort of stuff.
Brentford Rejects was my fix usually.
Brentford Rejects, I still follow them on Twitter. They are actually prolific on Twitter. Cool. Right. Well, what we wanted to do today is talk a little bit about the world post-COVID, but also we wanted to, because the world is full of nostalgia now, isn't it? Gav, you just alluded to it in terms of that. So we're going to be doing some nostalgia from post-2013, and then Leo, what I've done is I've put together a bit of a quiz for you against Gavin, which I realised I prepped Gavin for, but I hadn't actually told you about. So
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but I look forward to...
I don't think we should tell Leo about it until it's done.
It is not a quiz you could have done any prep for, I will say, other than just general football knowledge, so you should be fine. So the starter question I wanted to do was, we always used to start with a bit of the back pages, and what I wanted to know is football's response to COVID-19. How do you guys think it's been? Have you been satisfied with it, or have you felt it's been poor?
I guess from my perspective, it's been tough time to be a Tottenham fan, because it feels like on a weekly basis we try to outdo ourselves in either breaking social distancing, furloughing, like repeated ways to try and make people dislike our football club, essentially, and I find that quite uncomfortable. But I think it's been a difficult one the people in charge of football clubs have to do their job, which is to plan and to try and figure out the best ways to save money, etc. They don't have the correct information to be able to know when they'll be able to open stadiums again or play football matches again. So I do think it's a bit more. I've had a few arguments with people defending footballers and defending football clubs, because I don't think it's a particularly easy situation.
It's intriguing, isn't it? Because on one level, and one of the quotes I had in the article that I sent to you guys beforehand was, professional football's collective indecisiveness managed to make the government's daily press briefings look structured and resolute. That's from Paul Wilson in The Guardian. And it is interesting. If you look at football's response, you kind of alluded to it there, Gavin. It's an interesting dynamic between, are they just guilty of a really severe poor lack of communication in this? Or are they guilty of really just pushing a greed narrative and just trying to do everything they can to keep their chief executives and their pro footballers on high wages? Leo, I don't know what Chelsea's response has been to this particularly. I think they've been quite quiet, haven't they?
It's all been... I mean, it's so hard to follow, isn't it? Because it feels like every day there's more news on it. I mean, the thing I saw today was the players aren't taking a pay cut, but I don't think they've furloughed any staff, and they've kept everyone on 100% of their pay, which, I mean, it's rare you can have anything to be proud of as a Chelsea fan, but that's probably better than...
Annoyingly, I would have picked Chelsea as one of the teams that I think, and football clubs that have actually seemed to have responded quite well. You hear about Abramovich opening up some of their hotels, etc.
Yeah,
it's
an unusual feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess if Newcastle get bought by the Saudis, he'll be one of the most liked chairmen of all time now. He's working his way back into favour.
Which is in and of itself a difficult one, isn't it? Do you think that opening up hotels, because this is a really difficult economic argument. Do you think that opening up hotels, the players together scheme, that Jordan Henderson seems integral behind leading, and Henderson is rapidly, to me, proving he is one of the best blokes in football. Do you think that's enough? Do you think they've gone far enough?
Yeah, I think it's a tough balance, because all these footballers, I think what is missed in a lot of the dialogue is that a lot of footballers come from working class backgrounds, and they've taken on a lot of risk, and they have to usually support wide, like, family networks and friends that they pay for a lot of different things, and actually they kind of can't all be in the same position and all give 30 or 40 or 50% of their salary away. And I don't think it's overly fair to assume that they will, just on the basis that some of them are really wealthy individuals. I don't see any other millionaire groups getting together to cut their salaries and to share it widely around.
It's interesting. The PFA have basically said that they're easy targets, haven't they? Effectively.
Miller doesn't help himself. He always comes across so badly in any scenario, I think, where the PFA gets involved.
Yeah, it's just I just come back to the lack of communication. It's just been really, really poor, because I think if you look at it as being exactly what you just said, players are going to be in different financial circumstances, and also it's worth saying that not every Premier League player is going to be better paid than the average person in society, that 100%. That they are all going to have different. They are all going to be on different wages in general, and it is really hard to assess that from a position of actually they have done a lot. Taxes thing is a really difficult one, isn't it? Because I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I think it was one of the top players in the Premier League. I think it was Andros Townsend actually came out and said that it's just really naive to.
I'd quibble with your description of him as a top player in the Premier League, but
I don't know. I was just watching the clips of best Premier League goals ever, and his swinger against Man City was right up there in terms of.
Yeah.
But do you think? I mean, it also comes down to actually like some of the other clubs, because actually these clubs could be in a lot of trouble, like, as well. And I think that to actually, the people in the National League and the Football League saying that this period now is about getting through with the same amount of teams in the league as they started with, so not losing teams. And obviously that has a knock-on effect on everyone's jobs in general. Do you think that teams need to come out and say more about their financial positions? And do you think this is a point of wake-up call for the leagues in terms of their financial situations? Do we need to now stop this football chasing the dream thing that there seems to be going on?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like it is the model there would almost have to be completely broken to then fix it, and maybe that's what it needs to happen. But most top football clubs run, I think that it's usually their wage bill makes up about 80% of the revenues that they bring in, and that's a fixed cost. So whenever you take away the revenues that they're able to bring in, it puts them automatically in a very difficult position. But if someone was to make the decision, oh, we're going to cut the salaries of all of our workers, including playing staff, by 50%, they also know that those players would likely demand moves and would get huge compensation elsewhere. Someone is willing to pay them. So, yeah, I think there's probably a broader discussion on whether or not football clubs, in particular in England, should look at maybe more of a German model where you have fans more involved in the sort of background and the 50+1 ownership rule and the finances. But again, it's still it would take a huge change for it to come out different, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think football at the moment is suffering from the same problem as everything else, which is that it's just obviously, who could have predicted this exact circumstance? But nothing is set up to. Everything is quite fragile, on the financial level. No one is prepared for the rainy day. That's not the sort of the culture that has existed for the last 20, 30 years, and maybe that's what we'll be moving back to in football and just the world in general. Like actually preparing for the worst case scenario rather than running everything as efficiently as you possibly can.
I think you're spot on with that, because I think I've had this argument with people at times where they've said the Premier League is never going to, like, it's just going to get richer and richer. And I've been like, everything comes down, like, eventually, like, every system eventually collapses because of that. And I think now is a really weird time. I mean, I was reading about, I was reading from the Southend United chairman, who was basically kind of proposing a plan through. He was saying that for him as an owner of a football club, you need to be using all the income generated that you're generating to run the club, and you need to be generating further income from outside, but by that, he used the phrase making people sweat, so looking at sponsorship deals, not penalising the fans, not putting more money on them, but also there being assistance from the Football League to guarantee long-term survival, which to me seemed really interesting. He added that last point because I was like, actually, why is this now on the Football League and the Premier League to put things down? Why have we not got exactly what you said, Leo, these rainy day plans? Or actually, yes, no one saw this coming, but people could see, like, you know, attendance is dwindling, sponsorship deals changing, people going bust, and like, we already have lost Bury this season. Charlton look like they're in serious trouble at the minute. It just to me feels like a wake up call, and I just think that the response to COVID now needs to be clearer. I think there needs to be some real structure from the top. I don't know if that's naive and expecting too much of football, but I just think it's an opportunity as much as anything as well.
But that's sort of, I mean, as you said, that's kind of how the response has been characterised. It's just, you know, every day there's a new news story because, you know, Tottenham have done this, Newcastle have done that. There's no centralised responses. There's not sort of the football response. There's each individual club, each individual player's response. And that's not, yeah, is that good enough? No, not really.
No. Intriguing. On that note, in terms of football returning, obviously all three of us, massive football fans. I guess Leo, well, I'm guessing actually, Leo, you probably want the season null and voided more than Gavin does in general, given that your position at your football club at the minute. In all seriousness, football returning, what do you make? And do you think that's going to happen sooner rather than later? Do you think that it can ethically be defended for it to happen sooner rather than later? What would you like to see?
Yeah, I think that, from my opinion, I think that the best thing that could happen for the game would be for the games to start being played behind closed doors, and I think it will actually show the importance of fans and the importance fans have in football. I think it will be a wake-up call to some of the TV rights that won't be the same watching it with no sound in the stadium each week. There won't be the same. And you would hope that that would mean once you come out the back of this, that it's not just, ticket prices are going to fly up again, that actually we need to make sure that we take care of the fans and keep them engaged with the game. With regards to it coming back in general, it's hard to see. I was reading that it's apparently to run a game of football, you need about 270 members of staff, like people at a stadium. And I can't imagine how that's going to be able to get signed off from a government perspective in the UK for the foreseeable next couple of months.
Do you think it should go first? As in, obviously, when I say first, I mean, well, no, I do mean first. Do you think there is an argument that actually it would boost morale of the majority of the nation? So should we try and get football in place in terms of actually we are possibly going to have social distancing measures for quite a long time, sport massive positive, or do you think that actually football cannot? Because also, if you think about it, even on a sport level, they're not going to bring back football, cricket, golf, rugby, tennis. They're not going to bring them all back at once. Yeah. Why does football get any precedence over anything else? Would you like to see football come back first if you were balancing it up against each other, or would you want to see actually football, waiting and coming back when actually the majority of society feels that things are coming back at a steady pace for everyone?
Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, I can understand the arguments on both sides. I mean, I'm personally, and probably from a selfish perspective, I think it would make everyone obey the rules a bit more if you actually had some football to watch. It's a lot easier to socially distance and stay at home if there's actually something to do at home.
Even after the PSG match.
Sorry?
Even after the PSG match, where all the players turned up at the end of the Champions League.
That is the problem, isn't it? That's on the other side. do you then encourage people to go and, you know, watch the game round at their friend's house? Or, I mean, I know pub isn't an option, but, you know, congregate outside the grounds. I mean, hopefully you can trust people to act a bit more maturely than that, but is there any guide that they will? Not really.
Yeah, I think the sad reality is that football will come back in the next couple of months in some form because of the money, the money that we talked about. If you were to think about this completely objectively and you took money out of it, I don't think that there's any reason to put people's health at risk. I think that you would just shut down the game for 6 to 12 months completely, but it wouldn't be able to, the clubs would start to fold over time if that was the case. So I think they'll rush it back a bit quicker.
And Gav, I'll come back to your favourite topic. Non-league football's been nulled and voided. You're a big fan of the non-league. Given that non-league's been nulled and voided, is it hypocritical of football to insist on the Premier League, the Football League, the top leagues to come back for the validity and integrity of the competition, given that that integrity has been dismissed already at a lower level because it's just going to be too much work?
I think that that's a bit of a nonsense, to be honest. I know that people keep talking about the integrity of football. Football doesn't have any integrity. They're all the football clubs are owned by massive, rich organisations that try and squeeze every penny out of their fans possible, and that is why it'll come back in non-league. There's less money, so they're happy to just null and void it. It's a sad truth, but I do think that the seasons could, if you look at the numbers of people that are dying on a daily basis, and if this was happening because there was a world war going on outside and there was bombs being dropped, the same numbers of people would be getting killed, and you would definitely just cancel the season and null and void it. But since it's a invisible illness, all of a sudden we start discussing bringing football back, and it just doesn't really sit comfortably with me, I don't think.
It's a really difficult answer, and I think probably what we should have emphasised and what we emphasised in terms of when we were talking about this initially in the planning phase is that this is in the context of no one knows what they do if they're in these positions, because as you say, the integrity of the competition, the safety of people is obviously paramount and comes first. Obviously, you don't even need to say that anymore because everyone's saying that, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, as you say, it's the same argument, and I think, Leo, you alluded to this earlier, it's the same argument as everyone's having. It's the economic stability of people, and that is not about economics versus public health. That's about actually people's lives are going to suffer because football clubs are going to suffer. They employ people. They are going to possibly do what to possibly go out of business, and then that puts more pressure on the government, which then puts more pressure on all the things that we talked about, even stuff like that even has a contributing factor on domestic abuse rates going up, all that sort of stuff. It's not an easy argument to say, and I think it is sad that, as you said, that non-league football has to suffer because actually people aren't as bothered.
Out of interest, what would you also think? Whenever it comes down to this integrity of a football discussion, I always think, would there be such a big force that we have to finish the season if Man City were top of the Premier League instead of Liverpool? Because I don't think that the media would be so worried about Pep and their billionaire owners like getting another league trophy. They'd be like, oh well, they've already got enough of those. It's grand. We'll just null and void it. I think people become they're full of integrity whenever you hear all the Sky Sports, all ex-Liverpool players come out and discuss how it would be a disgrace to not finish the season.
You have really picked up the Jose Mourinho mantle in the last. Leo,
conspiracy theorist Gab.
Leo, what do you make of that? Do you think it is a case of actually, do you think it would be as simple as that if other teams were top of the league or if other teams were doing?
I think that there's a sort of general feeling that Liverpool probably deserve to win they deserve to win the league. They deserve to have a league, and it not to be some kind of like hodgepodge, like, oh, we gave them the title because they were so far ahead. I mean, what I don't understand, it seems more likely to me as sort of a thing that would a fairer way of dealing with it, to the extent that fair really matters. But why are we having next season? Let's just finish off this season when we can. Next season doesn't happen. We've already done half of this one. Like, why would you scrap all of that and start again?
Well, again, it comes down to selfishness, doesn't it? In general, the teams in the bottom three would obviously want to remain in the league next season, gain all the television revenue from next year. The players who want to move on July the 1st. I've seen Ziyech has come out. Will be a Chelsea player on July the 1st, whatever happens. So again, you kind of come down to that issue of that selfishness of footballers. And I want to say selfishness in terms of actually, that's a very black and white argument of it is selfish to want that. But also at the same time, if you think about, for example, Norwich, if they've got a lifeline to stay in the league, they know they're going to have to lay off loads of people if they go down, who they know. Whereas Leeds at the minute are already a championship club. They've accounted for being a championship club, you would assume, for next season. Not necessarily a selfish argument from their perspective, or from Ziyech, who might be like, actually, I'm going to earn lots more money at Chelsea. Actually, I can do more with that money. I can set up charities. I can put more money in. I'm not saying he will do that. I'm just giving an example of, is it necessarily a selfish argument to be like, it's just null and void it?
I think it's interesting to see, and I'm interested to look across Europe and how the different leagues approach it. Like, I know that I think it was today that the Dutch league has announced that they're going to just null and void the season, even with Ajax top. And the most amusing sideline of that is that Alan Pardew, who is in charge of the team that's 7 points adrift at the bottom of the league, Ado Den Haag, has pulled off the impossible and kept them up. So the one big winner of the crisis.
Amazing. What a great guy. So one of the other things I was going to ask you is a general question to kind of finish this off, and then we'll start to move more into our nostalgia zone, which is great fun. You're revamping football. Football's got an opportunity now, regardless of what there is. It's got a pause. Ideas for what you would like to see football change into, if there's anything you'd like to change about football. So I will give you some jigs to think on. One of the things we talked about is we've talked about a streaming service for football in terms of Netflix or Disney Plus style one. Gav, it won't surprise you to know I'm personally against that. Restructuring of the leagues, utilising five-a-side more as a more formal, I guess, televised futsal, using those sort of things more. And one of the others that I came up with was more research into heading the ball during this period, and actually looking at that as a problem more than it has been before. Leo, is there anything particular you would like to see either brought in or changed?
I mean, it's a lot of the things you talked about, a lot of the things Gav talked about, a focus on fans as an important part of the game, as a crucial part of the game. Yeah, I mean, do I think it's going to happen? Unfortunately not. I don't think that anything in history suggests that football moves in a way that we would like. I mean, I could see it almost, I sort of think it's more likely to turbocharge the things that we don't like, the sort of over-financialization of the game. I think that's more likely to, maybe this is just me being pessimistic. I don't know why they would use this reset as an opportunity for good when they have never done that in the past.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Would you like to see more? So, like, I guess then on your point, what I'd say is I potentially see the most likely of those things to come in would be a streaming service, more sport on 3 o'clock, less of a protected time than what it is now. Would you be pro that or against that? We've already, and I guess just to add to that, we've already started to see that with Amazon this season, haven't we? We've started to see more. You can watch every game on. Would you like to see that, or would you have problems with that?
I think I would have problems with that. What I like about the situation now is that I don't watch every Chelsea game. I don't, I watch Chelsea when they're on TV. I watch other teams when they're on TV. I don't want to I'm more a fan of football than I am of Chelsea. I like watching other teams play, and I don't want to get into a bubble where I only see Tottenham twice a year when they play against Chelsea. I like that I get the opportunity to watch other teams play but if I could watch Chelsea every weekend, I probably would, because they are ultimately my team, and I probably wouldn't watch much else because there's only so many hours in the day. So,
yeah, no, I think that would be the key problem that I would think about, because originally I'm all for progress and get as many games on as possible, but I would only watch Tottenham play football then, which would be a real sad thing. I don't think that you would have many proper football fans if you really just focus that everyone, like, you just, I don't know, you're born a Man United fan and you die a Man United fan and you don't watch anything in between. It'd be difficult.
I think as well for you, because when I lived in Colchester for 2 years, I constantly went, I must go watch Colchester play. I never actually did, which is on me as much as anyone. But for you, I'm guessing it would also take away that potential to go watch Hibs or watch Hearts play as well.
Yeah, I think that there would be a massive drop-off on, like, anything. I know that there's already a drop-off that everyone has a Premier League team, but there would be if you can just watch the superior product, if you can watch the perfect version of the game at any time, then why would you choose to go watch a worse version of it? You might as well just go watch people play in the park, I guess. But yeah, so I think it would be it'd be an interesting sort of study, and I think these sort of like Amazon test trials are quite interesting to see how it affects people watching it. But if they brought it in for every game, that would be quite a big change.
I guess just briefly going back to COVID, I wonder if we are going to see it, because COVID are obviously, they're flirting with taking out the 3 o'clock thing for now, so that we can, counter the lack of fans in the stadium.
Yeah.
For me, once you've taken that out as a one-off, it becomes incredibly easier to take it out permanently. So I do worry we are going to see this in the next 1 or 2 years. And I have no doubt we'll see it at some point. And I think that will be really tough for non-league teams and lower league teams and stuff like that. I am interested in this idea about 5-a-side, because for me, it's not something I would hugely think of. Leo, and obviously we've watched cricket together over the last few years.
Cricket friends.
Yeah, Leo a lot more than me. Obviously, coming at it from a cricket angle, they've done T20, the 100, which obviously we're huge fans of.
Can't wait for that. Yeah.
Do you think football, coming at it from a cricket perspective, do you think football needs to experiment more in the same way to create other aspects of the game?
I don't think they need to. I mean, that's the question. I don't think they need to. It's already it's the most popular sport in the world. I don't think they need a shorter version or a smaller sided version from a interest standpoint. From a health standpoint, if there were benefits to it over playing 11-a-side, then yeah, I think that's something they should think about running as a more as a kind of disposable entertainment thing to watch during while we can't do 11-a-side. But yeah, I don't think it's something that's needed, if that's...
Yeah, I thought about it quite a lot, because the 5-a-side thing, originally I thought, that's a great idea, and then I realised that I was terrified if that came in, because I think that it would probably kill football for the next generation. Like, if you can watch the shorter little clips of your favourite footballer, and it's all little shorter matches and lots of goals and skills, like, all of a sudden you probably don't go back to people watching full 90-minute games, which can be quite slow sometimes to watch. But then I think the compromise that I thought, and it was probably the one thing I think that if I could make a change to football, is I would bring back more Masters football. Do you remember the Masters football on Sky Sports? What happened to that? That was great.
I forgot about Masters football.
Yeah, that is the purest form of the game. In some ways, that is the only 5-a-side that I think is acceptable, where you get older players and get them to do it. And that should probably just be enforced on any player that retires, has a 5-year Masters career just lined up that they have to play.
There was one I love. Leo's changing his studio, which is...
Changing locations, moving to a new studio.
That's nice of you to bring the lads with you.
Yeah, no, they've followed me through. I might have to... This is getting very worrying where Aaron Ramsey's face has gone, but
what was I was thinking I don't think I would watch 5-a-side. I don't think it has the same appeal for me as 11s does. But then actually when I was thinking about it, I was actually thinking, when you just said about the Masters, I was like, no, I did watch that. It was very enjoyable. That was literally one of the highlights of my year.
Ideally, if they could get all the players back from that Nike Scorpion advert.
Yeah,
just run that.
Or just constant repeats of the Jogo Bonito adverts and stuff.
Yeah.
Incredible. Right, let's go. So, I have set you a number of questions here for our on-the-spot feature, which we're used to doing a quicker one. We're going to do a slightly lower one. And they are based on football since 2012-13, which is, Gav, we have spoken since then, but when we last spoke on the airwaves, I've got a number.
Relocate, sorry.
Second relocation. I love
that was the shops, not a walk. Sorry.
So the query I've got is, what has been the best game you have seen in the period from the end of the 2012-13 season to right now? I've got 3 I've written down, and I want to narrow it into a top 3 in general. So, Gav, your greatest game you've seen since 2013?
I think it's very, I actually struggle with this a lot. I've listed what I think is about 6 games, but I'll not be that tedious to go through each of them. But I think in terms of, as a Tottenham fan, it is hard to top either the game against Man City. I think as for pure entertainment, the 4-3 against Man City was probably even better than the Ajax comeback, just because of the last minute VAR disaster with Raheem Sterling scoring and it going from absolute sun. I remember I sent a message to my girlfriend and just said the worst thing that has ever happened, the worst thing that could happen has happened, and then she responded and she was like, oh god, what happened, and I was just like, the greatest thing ever has just happened. And it was in the split of 30 seconds I went from the lowest point I've had as a football fan to the highest. So yeah, I would probably pick that one out, but as a neutral, I was looking through some of the games you mentioned, and I remember that France-Argentina game at the World Cup was an incredible game, 4-3, and the 6-1 Barcelona against PSG comeback. That probably, if I was forced to pick non-Tottenham games, those would probably be my 2.
Cool. I'm just wondering, this is a bigger question, but I'm just wondering what happened to VAR, because it was beautiful in that City Spurs game, and this has been pretty dreadful. Which, Gav, as you alluded to, may come down to my dislike of Manchester City more than it does to anything else.
It's hidden there deep within all football commentators and pundits. I think there's just a real deep dislike for Man City.
If you haven't checked this out, the Titanic goals to the Raheem Sterling moment is absolutely brilliant. Just the set to the Celine Dion, it just works perfectly.
I'll have to Google.
Interesting, cool. So Leo, what did you have down as your game?
So I've picked out a lot of the ones you mentioned, but I've gone for 2 that actually weren't on your list, and I've gone for one.
I know what you're going to say.
Not that I'm difficult or anything. Mm-hmm. So I've gone for the one which is the best game I've been to in person, and one that is the game that I'll remember most, which weirdly is not on your list. So the game that I really will never forget watching, and I watched the whole game, open mouthed, was Germany-Brazil in the semi-final of the World Cup 2014.
That's a great show.
You just that sort of 12 minutes or whatever it was, where it just felt like they didn't stop scoring for the entire time, and you just thought, what on earth is going on here? And then the best game I've been to was actually earlier this season, and I think, to be honest, you could pick a lot of games involving that Ajax team, but the game at Stamford Bridge this year, the one where they had 2 men sent off in the same passage of play, they went down to 9 men, it was 4-4, 9 men, Ajax was still attacking. They were still the fullback was still overlapping. They are an insane team, and I mean that not insanely good, as in they are mad, they are totally mad, and it's just, I laughed through that entire second half. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. This is just madness.
I knew it would be on yours the minute I posed the question to you. I knew that would be your number one. Yeah. Brazil, Germany. So I considered it. I didn't put it down as much as anything because I don't know. It just felt, there's something about it that felt wrong. I don't know about.
I was going to say that. It felt like the death of football almost. It was like Brazil in Brazil, just it felt like a murder was happening in daylight, and we were all just watching.
True. I think there is an argument that it wasn't really a great game, was it? Like, I mean, it was over after 27 minutes, but in terms of just, watching a match where I thought, oh my God, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I'm watching something I'm never going to forget. That was the one that stood out to me.
I will agree, it was the most remarkable game of that period, for sure. So, Gav, I know which one is in there as one of ours, because I have also put City Spurs 4-3. I mean, it was just breathless, that game. And it just set it right from the off. And Spurs, I think Spurs sticking with City was one of the best things. It felt like, I don't at all like nor condone boxing, but it almost felt like a boxing match in terms of the intensity and the ability that Spurs were just on the floor and then getting back up and landing punches on City. It was just brilliant. I've also put Spain 3, Portugal 3 at the 2018 World Cup, if anyone remembers that.
Yeah, the Ronaldo free kick late in the game. That's incredible.
The Ronaldo free kick just cemented it. Again, I mean, in terms of, I think the thing about football is, isn't it? It's your memory of where you were and what you were doing as much as anything as well, isn't it? I was having a Chinese with a good friend, and it was the first game of that World Cup I'd really watched. And for me, that game just, the reason I plumped for that over France-Argentina is I'm like, that game set the tone for that tournament. That is the game where it was like, all bets are off. The quality of football was insane. I don't know if anyone remembers.
Yeah.
I was thinking that actually about the Spurs City game. That's the one that stands out to me as not just a really good game and a kind of ding-dong title fight, but incredible quality. That was just those Son goals where you're like, oh my God, he couldn't have hit that better. And just throughout that game, you think these are two exceptional teams playing really well.
Yeah. Which is why I've been devastated what's happened to Spurs this season, because the quality they've shown over the last few years has been ridiculous. The third game I went for was Liverpool City right at the start of this. The 2014, the 3-2, Coutinho bending in the winner late on, the Steven Gerrard "this doesn't slip now" game. Which for me again was just the occasion. It was the same day as the Hillsborough anniversary. The quality of the goals is insane. David Silva was playing at the top of his game, in general. It was honestly, in my opinion, in all seriousness, it was the one I put top out of the three.
That was a horrendous call across 7 years of football to have picked that as the best game.
What was wrong with it, Gav? Go on.
Man City Tottenham. I forgot that I'd written down one, which was my one that I was actually at was Republic of Ireland beat Italy 1-0 in the Euros, but it was one of the most tedious, awful games of football where Italy played their second strength team and Ireland got a late winner, Robbie Brady, put it into the back of the net with a flick Taylor in the 85th minute. But that was I was at the game in France and that was probably the highlight of my life so far, was essentially crying with groups of old Irish men at the top of a very steep stadium. But yeah, so I maybe can't judge your pick too bad. Whenever that's probably my favourite.
So I am guessing then that City Spurs probably goes in as number one.
For me, I think that's probably the best game.
Yeah, so there you have it. Our expert opinion, best game between 2013 and 2020, City Spurs. So the next question, which Gav, I think we were watching this in the bar together. Leo, I'm afraid I'm not sure if you were there for this. Was it better than Arsenal 7, Reading 5?
I think I wrote down 95% of all of the games that you listed were better than that game, which was just a car fight. That was just two awful defenses and some average. And I think, was that in the League Cup or that just sums up the League Cup, that's allowed to happen, that sort of game.
It reminds me a bit of that. I don't know if you remember, there was an Arsenal-Chelsea game where Arsenal beat us 5-3. It was when Andre Villas-Boas was in charge at Chelsea. And it felt like Arsenal had a one-on-one about every 7 seconds. The defending was completely non-existent from both teams. It was great fun, but it was these aren't good teams here.
I remember that was the High Line experiment with John Terry at the back and Robin van Persie just jogging in behind every time they got the ball.
Our defense was so bad that day that Andre Santos scored for them. So that's, that tells you a lot.
I mean, Andre Santos, I regularly remember, sadly. I don't know why. He just regularly pops into my head as a terrible, terrible player. Although, to be honest, bless him, he was probably better than I remember him being. Okay, fine. I've put yes. It definitely is. I mean, yeah.
100%.
Right, next question. Player who has surprised you the most in that period. That can be either someone who you think has actually, he's actually shocked me with how well he's done, or actually I'm surprised he hasn't quite lived up to his potential or whatnot. Leo, I'll come to you first.
So on the negative side, I'm gonna answer your question by moving my head.
Still
I'm afraid to say.
That's such a good shout.
Jack Wilshere, unfortunately, and I'd say through no fault of his own, through injuries largely, but from that game against Barcelona where you thought this kid has it, it hasn't worked out, has it? On the positive side, choose one of that Leicester team. Yeah. Who would have thought, Kante, Vardy, Mahrez, for that season, even Robert Huth and Wes Morgan were brilliant, and they're not, the idea when you see Wes Morgan lifting the trophy, it's pretty incongruous, isn't it? He's not a title-winning centre-back under normal circumstances, but there was something in the water that year.
Yeah, I may struggle with that with my three. I have gone for number one. The player that came to my mind first was Jordan Henderson. Not that I ever thought Jordan Henderson was a bad player, but I definitely didn't see Hendo going on and doing what he's done. Like, I did not go on and see him. And I know people still look at him and go, he's a very average midfielder. Liverpool's midfield is not great. I actually think he's superb. I honestly think he's brilliant, and I didn't see it. Number two I put was Harry Kane. So there is an English focus on this. Harry Kane, again, whenever I saw him at Norwich, if you remember, which was our first year at uni, he was not good enough. And same at Leicester. And what Harry Kane's done is nothing short of ridiculous, in my opinion.
I was trying to place where he would have been in his career in 2013. That was my problem why I didn't include him. I was like, was he good by then, or was that?
I looked it up. He had his first Spurs start April 2014.
Under Tim.
So, yeah, he sort of fits perfectly. I think the odd bit about doing this over 7 years is that there's quite a few players that have gone from, they just didn't have a career. Have a career. So, yeah, he was top of my list originally, but what was your third, Tim?
My third was a newer one that actually came to my mind later on, which is more I just put him in just because I wanted to big him up slightly. Tammy Abraham. So I, bizarrely, would claim that outside of Chelsea fans, I have probably watched as much of Tammy Abraham as anyone has over the last 5 years, which is a very weird claim to put in. I don't get it. I never got it. I was like, he's very average. He's just meh. And then when he came back in the summer, I remember watching the Man United game and thinking, this is pure evidence of everything I've been saying over the last 5 years. He's not good enough. Giroud is better. Put him in. And oh my word, honestly, the improvement in him this year, I'm still not 100% convinced, but the improvement is chalk and cheese from where I thought he was before. Leo, I don't know if you'd share that or if you've already...
No, I agree. I'm not. Do I think he's the sort of long-term future for Chelsea up front? I hope so. But if you'd asked something at the start of the season, I'd say no, almost certainly not. That now I think maybe. This guy clearly has something. Whereas before I thought he was a bit of a championship bully.
Yeah, and watching England at the under-21s Euros was painful at times. Gav, who are yours?
So I had a list, and then whenever you have that moment where you realize that there's a correct answer to the question, whenever you just stumble upon a name, and the person that has repeatedly surprised me, both good and bad, over the last 7-year period, has to be Moussa Sissoko. I remember I went to see Moussa Sissoko play for Newcastle against Tottenham, and Newcastle had been relegated already, and they absolutely ran away with it. 5-1 they beat us, and Moussa Sissoko looked like the best player I've ever seen live. He then went to the Euros, outshone Paul Pogba in their run to the final for France, joined us for 30 million, which seemed like a ridiculous fee, surprised me then that he went from being this incredible footballer to literally the worst footballer I've ever seen live, in trying to, like, couldn't control the ball just bounces off him. Then had a 2-year period where he essentially wasn't a footballer, like didn't make the bench for Tottenham, didn't get into the squad whatsoever, was a complete flop. And then just whenever you think, oh, that's completely done, his career is over, Tottenham we get our home midfield gets wiped out in a couple of months, where Dyer was out, Wanyama was out, and we sold Moussa Dembele. And Sissoko came back in and played centre midfield with Harry Winks, and they went on to get to the Champions League final with that midfield, and he turned the semi-final against Ajax in one of the best midfield bossing performances I've ever seen. He came on at halftime, and I just thought, I was like, what summed Moussa Sissoko's career at Tottenham up was that run to the Champions League final, and then he gave away a penalty within 1 minute of the final.
It wasn't a pen though, was it? I
know, but it was just like, that is... Every single time I think I've got Moussa Sissoko figured out, he will either surprise me good or in a good way.
I still don't know if I think he's good or not. He's been in our lives for a while, and I don't know if he's good or rubbish. I have no idea.
I don't really know what age he is. I don't really know he's had a French league career. Then he was at Newcastle for ages. He's been at us for
27 forever, isn't it?
Yeah, he just hasn't changed, and I hope he never changes.
So I think then, from reactions, we've narrowed that down to Harry Kane, anyone from the Leicester squad, or Moussa Sissoko. I think the three.
I think factually, I'm a bit too attached to Sissoko. The Leicester team is the big. I think.
I'll be honest, Gav, you nearly won me over. Your persuasion in the argument was so strong that you nearly had it. It's who you pick from that Leicester team, isn't it?
I think the most surprising for me is Vardy. I mean, he was like we all know the story, the rise from non-league, and yeah, he was quick. But in that first season of the Premiership, when he scored kind of 4 goals, and Uncle Roy called him up for England, and I thought, what the hell is he doing? This guy hasn't got it. And now, he's, I think, on something like 99 Premier League goals. I think he's very close to 100. Yeah. That's the one that stands out most to me as surprising.
Cool. Outside of the obvious two, so outside of this guy and Cristiano Ronaldo, best player since 2013.
I'll go quick. I think that the correct answer is N'Golo Kante. Came from absolutely nowhere. I didn't realise he only had 1 season at Leicester. For some reason, I thought he'd been there a couple of years. Had 1 season at Leicester, wins the Premier League. First season at Chelsea, wins the Premier League. Gets named PFA Player of the Year, goes from, during that period, hadn't played for France, he's made his debut, he's now won the World Cup, and now he's probably likely, I would think, to get a lot of interest from I hope he would go to somewhere like a Real Madrid, because I don't particularly like Chelsea, but I would say Kante would be my answer.
So I put Kante down, so I've got down, I really struggle to narrow this down, so I've got Kante down, I've got Modric, Salah, Toni Kroos. Then the 3 I narrowed it down to is the big 3, although I've got one obvious winner. So one of them was Rafa Varane, won a World Cup, virtually ever present for Real Madrid over the last 7 years, 4 Champions Leagues, 1 La Liga. Robert Lewandowski, 5 Bundesligas, scored 25 goals or more every single season since 2012-13. And I was shocked by this, because if you'd asked me at the end of uni, he would be nowhere near this list. For me, the best player in that time has been Eden Hazard. So if you look at Eden Hazard, 1 Player of the Year, 2 runners-up in Player of the Year in the Premier League, 1 Young Player of the Year in a separate season as well, not a Gareth Bale fun one, Gav. He was the 2nd best player at the World Cup. He's won 2 Premier League titles. He's won 2 European leagues. He has captained his team internationally, and in 5 of the 8 seasons has scored over 15 goals, and has bounced back from the season that he was questioned most in 2015-16, where I was furious at him. So for me, statistically, I think it's proven. I think it's Eden Hazard.
Well, I'm not going to argue with Tim suggesting one Chelsea player and Gav suggesting another. So I'm happy either way.
Why has this happened? I didn't even think
we need to say anything.
that great a period of time.
I was going to suggest Eden Hazard without really believing it, but I'm glad that Tim's done it for me. So,
And the amount of research I did into that, I was like,
Don't think Eden. I think if you're looking at in terms of like consistency, and you were to measure it based on Hazard has like his off season, he takes a season off here or there.
that's in taking away the passion. That's my problem with Eden Hazard.
Yeah,
that's my question mark.
I think the thing that people underestimate with Hazard was how much of a one-man team Chelsea were when we had him. We didn't have a plan to attack. It was give the ball to Hazard and then see what happens. And like the chances he creates, just no one else could score. We haven't really had a functional striker for a while. So that's,
Yeah.
It worked with Costa, but, that all blows up. So
Yeah, I mean, very true. So my problem was because I looked at your Cruises and your Modric's and all that sort of stuff, and they're I know statistically it's hard to judge as a central midfield player, but statistically they haven't racked up the same numbers in terms of individual honours as well. Mohamed Salah really only has turned it on. I think if you're asking me, would I prefer to have Salah now or Hazard now? That's a difficult call, but Salah's only really come to the party since 2016. Lewandowski's stats are ridiculous, but to some degree they're unproven outside of the Bundesliga. So I think Kante or Hazard for me are the two. Leo, I'll give you the call. Kante or Hazard?
Let's go with Kante just because it covers Leicester as well. The one thing I'd then just, throwing it back to the surprises since 2013, Salah is one who, when we were at university together, he was at Chelsea, he was raw, he gave the ball away all the time, and he was a sort of useful option off the bench for the fourth best team in the country. From that to where he is now, I wouldn't have seen that come.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that, and I think you just reminded me of it because it was a similar also Chelsea sort of failure at the time, and I'm wondering if we haven't thought of them because, again, nobody likes to admit that Man City are an extremely successful team, but Kevin De Bruyne has been a sensational player since he left Chelsea, went to Germany, player of the year there, came back. He's been a player that he could potentially get it this year. He's won a couple of Premier Leagues. I won't really.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up because it still hurts, but.
I did have a look at KDB. His numbers are surprisingly not brilliant, if you actually look at it.
Which more than the numbers, though, isn't it?
It's more than numbers. I absolutely agree with that. And usually I'd be the one making that argument. But at the same time, I was surprised how, when I was looking at the attacking midfielders, I was surprised how good Hazard's numbers were. Because I don't remember them being that good. I remember them being okay at times, which is possibly an argument. Why not? I'm more than happy with Kante as a winner. I think World Cup winner, 2 league titles, all that sort of stuff. Do you, as a quick aside to that, do you have a favourite player you've had during that period?
I think it's got to be for me very quickly. Harry Kane. Harry Kane has won Golden Boots, put Tottenham on the map, and he's played 11 games against Arsenal and scored 10 goals against them. So there's just no one even on the same level across that period for me.
I was thinking, I mean, accepting Chelsea players just because that's boring for all of you. I think and he's a new player, but the one I'm loving most at the moment is Saint-Maximin. He's just so much fun. I mean, again, do I think he's very good? I don't really know, but he's so much fun. He's just gets the ball and runs. And in a pretty boring Newcastle team, he is worth watching, just him.
Yeah. No, I think he's excited me regularly. I mean, for me, obviously this guy, still putting the numbers up. Marky Noble loves it. But outside of West Ham, the other day I did like the best team of players I've seen live, and this guy, and this is an incredible testament because I don't particularly love Spurs. I liked them under Pochettino and respected them, but Son Heung-min for me is one of the most likeable players, but also one of the efficient and deadly. I know Gabby's obviously up on your.
Yeah, I was about to say I've got a bit of a soft spot for Sonny. I also love that people forget how many. He's got quite a few red cards on the CV now for a couple of kickouts, but people like to just put that to one side because he's so smiley.
Yeah.
The other one, non-Chelsea player, more over a longer period than Saint-Maximin is Zaha. I just love watching him play.
Yeah.
Interesting. Zaha still frustrates me a little bit, I have to say. He had amazing. I think 2017-18 he was incredible. But other than that, I think I've been a bit. You can do better. David Silva for me as well. Just gets better and better all the time. And outside of it's a weird one. I was thinking, even if you include Messi and Ronaldo in there, Messi for me, you'll realise in a minute, Messi for me has given me moments that I'm like absolutely unbelievable. But I'm not sure. I think if you look back, he had a better 7-year period pre this than he has since 2013. So I think his 2006 to 2013 was better than this 7 years.
I think it'd be interesting to look at that statistically, actually, because I think his stats would be much higher the second half. But you're right. He doesn't maybe have that rawness that he had whenever he burst onto the scene. But that was, again, the system he played in. He was more of a right winger then versus playing up top now and sort of being more reliant on getting the goals. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Something, and I think it's interesting what Leo said. That's something I think I've noticed about how I watch football. I prefer rawness, like in terms of I like rawness. Like I was thinking, I preferred Sterling at Liverpool to what he is now. I mean, so Gav,
you're a closet Liverpool fan, and it comes out of all your answers.
There is a shirt poking through, isn't there?
Again, hidden in the background.
So Messi's stats, interestingly. So I'll just read it out quickly. So 17 goals, 16 goals, 38 goals, 47 goals, 53 goals, 73 goals, 60 goals. So that was the first 7 years. Next 7 years, 41 goals, 58 goals, 41 goals, 54 goals, 45 goals, 51 goals, 24 goals. I mean, the guy's a machine, to be fair. I think it was around that period, again, that first year at uni, last year at school for us, that he was just unbelievable. And that probably shifts the stats to level as opposed to being much better in this 7 years. Intriguing. So, favourite goal you've seen during this period?
It's only one answer for me here. And I looked through your list, Tim, and it is there. It's not me being difficult. It's Giroud against Crystal Palace. It's the best goal I've seen ever. The scorpion kick.
I was about to say, is that the scorpion kick?
Yeah, I mean,
Giroud has a habit of getting great goals.
The thing that's forgotten about that goal, and why I say without a doubt the best goal I've seen, it's a brilliant team move that happens to have a scorpion kick on the end of it. If Sanchez puts in the cross and it's a better cross and Giroud just nods it in, it's probably goal of the month. Yeah. It's front to back in sort of, I watched it and counted 14 touches, including a back heel.
I enjoy the precision. I was going to say for me that I discounted most of those goals. The James Rodriguez against Uruguay, your Giroud scorpion kick, your Ruben Neves is, well, every goal Ruben Neves scores. Yeah. Just because I'm like, yeah, they've kicked the ball really hard and really high. Like, that's good, but like loads of footballers have done that at some point in their career. My favourite one, so having said that, I did put Payet's free kick against Palace as my number 3, just because, I mean, although I will maintain the ability to get the ball that high and then the dip to get it back in was sensational.
I think if you're looking for an enjoyable montage of goals, you won't go wrong with the Dimitri Payet. He's got some beautiful goals.
Yeah. Number 2, I went for one that you probably won't know the name of, but you might remember the goal, the Acosta header against Orlando. It's the one where the ball got cleared and Rooney sprinted 75 yards.
That is such a Tim Mann selection. Oh my. The hard-working Englishman tracking back and getting a tackle.
But then the composure to have that put that cross in, it was unbelievable.
Playing a pub team in America and Rooney puts a tackle in and you make it top 3 goals.
My number 1 was Lionel Messi against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, where he just sat Boateng down on the floor and then lobbed Neuer, which at the time was you're lobbing the best goalkeeper in world football. So that was my. But Gav?
Yeah, the problem with favourite means that it is usually associated with something that you actually care about. Like the Lucas Moura goal against Ajax is just pure batshit crazy. Phoned my family and there wasn't any greetings. There was just screaming down the line, and they were screaming. I was screaming.
Jermaine Genius crying on that is brilliant as well. If you're
If watching Glenn Hoddle and they're all terrified Glenn Hoddle's going to have a heart attack. And, I had that, and then I guess slightly more neutral, but not really neutral. Gareth Bale Champions League final. That overhead kick is absolutely sensational.
I'd have put the Bale. Do you remember the run in the Copa del Rey final when he went off?
Yeah, one where he goes off the pitch. Yeah.
I'd have put that as a better goal, if I'm honest. But
I like that goal, but I think that it's sort of ruined for me by the fact that Barcelona's sub-keeper, that guy like Pinto, who just hung around for ages, was in goals with like weird dreadlocks. I'm like, doesn't really count if that's the guy in goal.
cool. Gab, I think I'm possible. Well, actually, no. So, Leo, do you have a second favourite out of those two?
It's all Giroud for me. It's all Giroud. It's the only one that matters.
No list.
Gab, would you go Giroud or Messi?
I would say Messi. I think the Giroud one, there's like an element of, I think, not luck, but like...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I don't think he's meaning to do exactly what he does, while Messi does put one of the best defenders and the best goalie like in the world just down. Just you sit down.
This is frustrating because I would have put Giroud as my second above the Gareth Bale overhead kick, but Leo, I'm gonna take charge and give it Messi if that's all right.
Like he hasn't got enough already.
Well, he needs one. We've already ruled him out of one. Right, we'll do team of that period next. We'll grade our three teams A to F, and then I'll go on to do the final quiz bit. So we'll get that done within the next 10 minutes or so. Best team you've seen in this period. For me, I wrote three down. So one is an international team, one is the French team from 2016 to 2018. One is City's current team, and one is Liverpool's current team. And I struggle to separate all three because I see weaknesses in all three.
I mean, my thought was you obviously hate to give it to them, but unfortunately it probably is that City team, isn't it? I mean, whether the Liverpool team is better, maybe they are, but until they actually win something, I don't think you could really give it to them. And yes, they have as good as won the Premiership, but when it gets null and voided and Frank leads the young Blues to a victory in the next season, will we remember it?
It's City's defence, though, for me.
Yeah.
I can't quite say they're brilliant defensively, but then I can't quite say Liverpool are brilliant in midfield. And that's what I was saying, there's weaknesses. It's like with the French team, I'm like, again, in midfield, are they brilliant or are they just good?
I think that French team is quite functional as well, and that they actually really struggled to get playing. Like, they have to play Giroud up top so he can bring other people into play versus just getting the best players into the team. So yeah, I think I guess they've succeeded, but yeah, I wouldn't say that they have the like flowing football of a Man City.
You feel like that France team should be better, don't you? Just with the players they have, you would think this. I mean, it's kind of Harlem Globetrotters, just the depth as well they have. Like you look at their bench and like this would probably get to the semi-finals of the World Cup.
Yeah. City then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's City. Yeah.
And I do have to say, given that I don't like City particularly as well, the grudging respect I have, and any team that's got David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne in probably is there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
As well as Aguero, who we haven't even mentioned, despite being...
Nobody mentions.
It's really sort of true of his whole career, isn't it? He's always brilliant and no one ever talks about it. He never even gets in the team of the season. It's like, scored another 27 goals, like... It's probably because he's such a boring bloke. That's probably part of it, isn't it?
Just prolific. Cool. Right. So we've got game of the last 7 years, not decade. Game of the last 7 years is City 4, Spurs 3 in the Champions League. Most surprising player for us is Jamie Vardy. Player of that period is N'Golo Kante. Goal is Messi versus Bayern Munich, and the best team is City. The current City team. Well, last season, I think. To be fair, the company's got to be in it. Right, quick before we get to this quiz, grade for our three teams over the last 3 years. So we'll start with West Ham. I've given them a C. I think they've been fairly steady the road. We've had one good season in 2015-16, and other than that, we've been poor.
I'd give Tottenham probably an A minus on the basis that they didn't get over the line, either to win a Premier League, even though there was a 2-year period where if you'd looked, they would have been top if you did a joint Premier League, because it was Leicester won it one year and then Chelsea won it the year after, and they both had significant drop-offs in between. But not winning anything and not winning the Champions League final. But from the starting point of 7 years ago, Pochettino taking over a team with, people like Adebayor and Paulinho.
Yeah, actually, 7 years ago, that summer, Poch splurged 100 on, not Poch, sorry, Villas-Boas splurged about 100 million on one of, I think, the worst, as in they're all good players, don't get me wrong. I think it's very easy to say one of the worst, and it feels like you're just criticising Soldado or Paulinho or whatever. Yeah. They're clearly all good footballers, but it just didn't work for whatever reason other than Christian Eriksen. And I think that's, for me, the reason Spurs are an A-. Their transfer business actually hasn't been incredible on the high end, if that makes sense. Good on the low to medium range, but on the high end, it's been not fantastic. But the difference, I mean, Spurs for me have overtaken Chelsea at the minute. I know Chelsea are above them in the table, but in terms of actual like depth and quality of the squad and where they should be, Chelsea are in a better place than Chelsea are at the minute. Which may be about to go to town on me on.
No, I mean, in terms of grading Chelsea over the last 7 years, and it's a little controversial, but I'd give it an A. And that's basically because it's had everything. If you're watching for the stories, we've had a couple of blow-ups. They're always quite fun. We've won the league a couple of times. Now we're getting to see some young players. I mean, we haven't been the best team, but we probably had the most fun other than Leicester fans.
I give you a B.
I can see that, yeah. I'm so glad, living near the Arsenal stadium. Just the lethargy of that place is just soul-sapping. Just like the boredom of all of their fans, and I'm like, at least we don't have that,
You'd have definitely. I think annoyingly, you'd have definitely been an A, because I think Chelsea are that definition of modern football at the minute, aren't they? In terms of they're seemingly now are maybe going on to a better place in terms of actually what they're doing. It's been chop and change the manager. It's not working, get rid of him. And just be right, we'll have success now, then it won't work, but then we'll get success again immediately after that kind of thing.
Yeah, it absolutely shouldn't work, but it weirdly does fairly well.
On a lesser level, it's the Watford model, isn't it? Watford have had a fantastic 7 years, but you look at it, you're like, how does a football club run like that function?
Yeah. Well, I think it's something I said about Man City. I think one of the reasons that I dislike them so much is that I feel like having the most money and being well run is really a form of cheating. If you're going to have loads of money, you should at least be PSG and buy 17 strikers and no centre mid. Give everyone else a chance by being a total basket case. And that is what Chelsea have done over these years. Yes, we do win the league every now and then, but we also blow up all the time. So, everyone gets to have that fun season when we finish 9th for some reason.
Entertainment value. Right, so that's cool. Leo, what we're going to do now, Leo, is you're going to, at the end of this episode, or potentially at the start if I edit it and change it around, you are now going to prove your worth as a pundit to fill in for Kit. So, Gav and Leo, this game is called Chase the Fifth. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a category, and you're going to take it in turns to go first. You're going to have to pick an answer to that category. That category, for example, it's not going to be this, but an example question would be top Premier League goal scorers, of which number 1 is Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer would get you 1 point. I don't actually know who's 5th, but say Frank Lampard was 5th, Frank Lampard will get you 5 points. Whoever's 6th and down, nil point. So you are aiming to get who is 4th or 5th in these lists, basically, for maximum points. Make sense?
Got it.
Cool. So your first question, and I nicked this off the Ellis James John Robbins podcast, if anyone's interested, is one of their made-up games.
Oh no, they'll probably hear it and complain.
Don't want any legal trouble, Tim.
I'm going to flip my phone, screen or bottom.
Who's calling it? Me or screen?
Screen, you're wrong. So Leo, you can go first or second.
I'll let Gav go first. Put the pressure on.
Gav, you're identifying the top 5 European Cup and Champions League winners.
European Cup and Champions League, and I'm aiming for...
Who's won the 5th highest amount of Champions Leagues.
Let's go for AC Milan.
Okay. Leo, do you want to talk us through the board?
So it doesn't go back to Gav, right? So I'm pretty sure. I'll run you through what my thinking was. I think Real are obviously top. I think AC are second. Third, I thought was probably. Then on my third, fourth, and fifth, I have Liverpool, Ajax, and Barcelona.
Intriguing. So
I don't know in which order, but I'm going to go for Barcelona because they should probably be up there, you would think.
Right. Gav, 2 points for you. AC Milan are second. Leo, Barcelona are fourth, so you get 4 points.
Oh, that's good.
Leo, your list was ridiculously impressive. Number 1, Real Madrid, 13. Second, AC Milan, 7. Third, Liverpool, 6. Fourth, Barcelona and Bayern are both on 5. And then fifth is Ajax with 4.
I forgot about Bayern. that's quite a big oversight.
I did not have that list. I'm quite worried.
So, Leo, you're first for this one. Smallest grounds in the Premier League. So the smallest ground would get you 1. The 5th smallest ground would get you 5.
And in the current Premier League.
Yeah. And obviously you might not want to talk the board through because Gav will be going second.
Yeah. Let's go for Turf Moor.
Okay. Gav, do you want to talk us through the board if you can?
I think Bournemouth is pretty small. I think Bournemouth's one of the smallest. In terms of talking you through the board, this will be diabolically bad, but that would be extremely ambitious. I think you got Norwich, be down there. See, since Tottenham got a new stadium, I no longer have to worry about all these small little stadiums that I'll never go to. Let's go for play it safe. I'll go Norwich.
Wow. Right, smallest ground in the Premier League is Bournemouth. Second smallest ground is Watford. Third smallest is Burnley. So, Leo, you get 3 points. Fourth smallest is Crystal Palace. Fifth smallest, Norwich City.
Oh, and
Oh, yes. Considering I forgot all the teams in the Premier League.
I forgot Watford existed, so that's...
Yeah, I'm quite... I feel a bit lucky.
Right. So, Gav, you will go first. Top goal scorers in the Premier League thus far this season.
Ooh. Okay. Let's go for... it's really hard to get... Okay, I'll go Tammy Abraham.
Tammy Abraham. Okay. Leo, do you want to talk us through the board?
I was going to go for Tammy Abraham as well, and this feels like a while ago. So I know Aubameyang's up there, Vardy's up there, Aguero presumably, he's normally around there somewhere, isn't he? I was going to go for Mane, who I think is probably somewhere in that region.
Oh, that's good. He's had a good season. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going for Sadio?
Yeah.
Number 1, Jamie Vardy, 19 goals. Number 2, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, 17 goals. Number 3, joint, Mo Salah and Sergio Aguero, 16 goals. Number 4 is Danny Ings with 15 goals.
Oh, God.
And number 5 is joint, Sadio Mane and Marcus Rashford with 14 goals.
Oh, unlucky Gav.
I got 0.
Yeah, Tammy Abraham has 13 goals. So he's 1 off.
1 off? Come on, Tammy.
Unlucky.
The beauty of this game, though, is that you could, so you were level the question before this.
I actually was going to say Danny Ings. I don't know why I didn't do that. I thought he'd be higher. I thought Danny Ings has had an incredible year. He'd be like top 2 or something.
He's got 2 goals more than Tammy.
Anyway.
Right. Who just went first? Gav did, didn't he?
Yeah.
I went first,
Leo, you should know everyone on this list. One of these is hard, but you should know all of them. Most international caps for Spain.
Okay. Let's go with Xavi.
Xavi. Gav, do you want to talk us through the board, which might be impossibly hard, but these last two are the harder two.
Like, I know Casillas has a lot of caps. Sergio Ramos is probably right up there because he's just gone on and on and on forever. Still don't. He's another player I just don't know the age of. Essentially, in terms of someone that like you've got, like someone like Piqué has played a lot of games. I'm gonna go for. Yeah, I'm gonna go Piqué. I've gambled.
Right, number one, Sergio Ramos, 168 caps. Number two, Iker Casillas, 167 caps. Number three, Xavi, 133 caps.
On the board, that's fine.
Number four, Iniesta,
I
131.
was gonna say Iniesta, but then I was like, he didn't break in and made it there.
Number five, this is the hard one, Andoni Zubizarreta, the goalkeeper from the 90s.
I've thrown this away. I should just be playing it. It is ridiculous.
Piqué is on the nears. So Silva, Alonso, Busquets, Fabregas, Torres, Piqué and Raul are all pretty much in the same ballpark. So we will do the final question for pride. I'm afraid. And I will I'm gonna make Leo go first again. Serie A winners.
Oh, okay. So I think I'm pretty confident on who's top. Let's go with Sampdoria.
Okay. Gav, do you want to talk us through the board?
Yeah, I think you've got the top ones will be between Juve, AC, Inter. Oh, I've sort of got to go big or go home. Yeah, like there's Roma, there's Lazio. One of those two potentially. I'm gonna go. Roma.
I forgot about Roma and Lazio. I'm suddenly much less confident on Sampdoria.
Right. Number one, Juventus, 35 titles. Number two, AC and Inter Milan, 18 titles. The gap is ridiculous. Number three, Genoa, 9 titles.
Oh no.
Torino, Bologna, and Proverali, 7 titles. I'd never heard of them. Number five, Roma with 3 titles. Sampdoria have 1, Leo.
Oh. Whoops.
It's respectable. 15-12, final score.
Oh, now I'm even more annoyed. I tried to go big on a couple of those. Just locked in a solid Casillas or something.
If you've got Iniesta, oh no, you would have won if you got Iniesta.
What could have been?
I don't think we might not do another podcast, but we're definitely playing the game again.
I'd assume that the public clamour for a second episode would just, become overwhelming at a certain point. But
well, Gav, I'll tell you what. I had a tiebreaker. We'll play the tiebreaker, and I might put it in if it's funny. If it's not, I might use it for later content. If we end up, because the clamour, as Leo said, is going to be huge.
If they need some bonus content just to keep them occupied until the second episode.
Exactly. This might make the extras. Right. So my tiebreaker was a ladder. So if you get one wrong, you're out. Otherwise, you can go furthest. It is players who played in the 2014 World Cup final between Germany and Argentina. Gav, you can try and level the challenge up. Are you both scribbling furiously?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. That's probably not great TV.
And we're going up to, we need 10, right?
Well,
or
there are 22. I'm going to do players who started, so I'm not going to do substitutes. So there are 22 options, but it's whoever gets it wrong first if the other can get it right.
Okay.
So we go like back and forth. Okay, yeah, got it.
So substitutes do not count, to be clear.
Okay.
Leo, as you won, you can pick whether to go first or second.
I'll go first.
Cool. Who you saying first?
I'll go with Messi.
I can confirm that Lionel Messi did start the game.
Okay. I'm going to go for... You missed a lot of good shots in this game. I'm pretty sure Higuain played.
Gonzalo Higuain did start the game, yes.
Sticking with Argentina, I'll go with Sergio Romero.
Sergio Romero did start the game, yes.
We'll mix it up. Go Germany. Philip Lahm.
Correct.
Mascherano, I know starters.
Correct.
I'm going to go with Toni Kroos.
Correct.
Manuel Neuer.
Correct.
Jerome Boateng.
Correct.
Mesut Ozil.
Correct.
Oh, that was a good one. I would have forgotten.
We've gone too fast because I now can't remember who's been said. I did have like a list in front of me so I could work out what positions we're missing.
Who's been said? So we have Leo. You have said Lionel Messi, Javier Mascherano, Sergio Romero, Manuel Neuer, Mesut Ozil. Gavin, it is your turn, and you have said Gonzalo Higuain, Philip Lahm, Toni Kroos, and Jerome Boateng.
Okay. I'm going to go for Angel Di Maria.
I'm afraid that is not correct.
I had him down. I was sure he'd started.
What?
He did not even come on.
Well, we know how that turned out for them.
This would have got really hard. So answers that you could have had were Mats Hummels, Benedict Hövedes, Christoph Kramer, Thomas Muller.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's a big miss.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Boza, Zabaleta, Di Michelis, Garay, Rojo, Lucas Belia, Enzo Perez, and Lavezzi.
They've got some terrible players in that team, Argentina, don't they?
Made the final that year.
I wanted to remember an Argentinian defender and just couldn't for the life of me figure.
I think I know why now, yeah. Marcus
Yeah, I'm like,
Rojo
oh, that is like a bottom of the table Premier League defense there. Like.
Meanwhile, Di Maria didn't get on the pitch, and Aguero presumably is on the bench. So
But Lavezzi played. Like, I don't really understand what happened in that. What are they? What was the plan?
So, well, Leo, thank you very much for joining us.
thank you for having me.
Allowed some fun for me and Gav. As we say, I assume the requests for a second podcast are coming. Genuinely, if you ask us, I'm sure we'd be happy to do it. But yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Stay safe.
You too, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Till next time.
See you either virtually or physically on the other side of lockdown.